There comes a moment in your life where you look in the mirror and you say, enough, enough pretending, enough accepting what breaks your spirit, enough letting people slide through the cracks of your boundaries like they never existed. Because you are not weak. You are not a doormat. You are not some broken soul just begging to be fixed by people who benefit from keeping you small. You've been carrying pain like it's your destiny, but let me tell you right now, your destiny is not to suffer in silence. It is not to water dead plants, feed toxic fires, or tolerate behavior that strips you of your worth. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to say, this is not love. This is not respect. This is not what I was created for. If they call you too emotional, let them. If they say you've changed, good. Growth feels like betrayal to those who stayed stagnant. But you are not meant to stay in places where your soul is starving. So today, we're going to call out the 6 behaviors that are unacceptable, non-negotiable, and absolutely should never be tolerated, not from others and not from yourself. Let me tell you something. Disrespect is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's the way someone looks at you like you don't matter. It's the interruptions when you speak, the jokes that cut too deep, the dismissive tone that says, you don't count. And too many of us have been taught to eat that disrespect with a smile, to stay quiet because we don't want to cause problems, to laugh it off, to brush it under the rug, to shrink ourselves down so we don't offend. But silence is not strength. Silence is not peace. Sometimes silence is the slow death of your self-worth. And I get it. It's hard to speak up, especially when you were raised to keep the peace, to avoid confrontation, to be the bigger person. But when you choose silence in the face of consistent disrespect, you're not avoiding conflict. You're inviting decay. You are handing people the blueprint on how to treat you. And if you tolerate the disrespect once, they'll serve it to you again. Only colder, harsher, and more deliberate. You don't have to be cruel, but you better be clear. Because when you finally draw the line, they will learn exactly where it should have been all along. People who truly value you don't test your patience to see how far they can push before you break. They don't throw little jabs cloaked in, I'm just joking. They don't diminish your dreams or mock your growth. And the moment you feel that sting in your gut, that pause in your spirit when someone crosses a line, it's your soul whispering, that was disrespect. But we've been taught to second guess that whisper, to tell ourselves we're overreacting, to convince ourselves it wasn't that bad. But let me ask you, how many not that bad moments does it take to break something beautiful? One disrespectful act may not destroy you, but 1,000 tiny ones, they'll crush your spirit if you don't push back. They'll make you question yourself, question your value, question your right to feel what you feel. But you have the right to feel disrespected. You have the right to stand up and say, I may have let that slide before, but not anymore. You owe it to the future version of yourself, the healed whole version, to protect your peace now. Speak up, not because you want to fight, but because you refuse to fold. It's not about being aggressive, it's about being assertive. It's about walking into every room and knowing you belong there, knowing that your presence is not a privilege someone else gives you, it's a power you own. When someone disrespects you, they are not just testing your limits, they are challenging your worth. And if you bite your tongue every time someone oversteps, they will start to believe they own the space you stand on, that they can do what they want, say what they want, and you'll stay quiet because you don't want to rock the boat. But maybe that boat needs rocking. Maybe the storm you bring by speaking up is exactly what will stop them from doing it again. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them feel the shift in your energy when you stop allowing what should have never been allowed. Respect isn't optional. It's the bare minimum. And when people see that you won't bend anymore, they either rise up or fall off. Either way, you win, because the cost of silence is too high when it chips away at the foundation of who you are. Disrespect comes in all shapes. Sometimes it's the boss who talks over you in meetings like your ideas don't matter. Sometimes it's the partner who dismisses your emotions because you're too sensitive. Sometimes it's the friend who only shows up when they need something, never when you do. And sometimes it's even you telling yourself to stay small so others don't feel uncomfortable. But the truth is, the longer you sit in spaces where disrespect is normalized, the more you start to believe that you're asking for too much by wanting basic decency. That wanting to be heard, seen, and valued is somehow needy. That's the lie. That's the trap. And that's exactly why silence is dangerous. Because it tricks you into believing that what's happening is okay. But let me tell you, when someone shows you that they don't respect your boundaries, your time, your presence, you don't have to fight them, but you must face them. You must say, I see what you're doing and I won't stay silent anymore. Because when you begin to honor your voice, the world starts to echo it back. Let's be real. Speaking up is scary. It can mean losing people, losing comfort, losing a certain peace that came from keeping everything smooth on the surface. But real peace isn't surface level. It runs deep, and it only exists when truth is allowed to live. And if that truth is that someone is mistreating you, then let it rise, let it roar if it has to. You are not required to be liked by everyone. You are required to be true to yourself. And people who benefit from your silence will always call you difficult when you finally speak. That's their problem, not yours. Because every time you speak against disrespect, you're telling your inner child, your future self, and your current soul, I choose me. And that choice is powerful. That choice is the root of self-respect. It's the beginning of healing. It's the foundation for a life that no longer tolerates bare minimum love, half-hearted apologies, or disrespect masked as just the way I am. No, you set the tone. And if they can't rise to meet it, they can step out the frame. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to fight to be firm. You just need to be grounded. Grounded in your worth. Grounded in your right to demand respect. And let's be honest, some people will never understand your value until you remove their access to it. Let them sit with that. Let them learn that you're not someone they can push and pull at their convenience. You're not available for disrespect. And you're not afraid to walk alone if it means protecting your peace. That's not weakness. That's strength in its purest form. That's knowing who you are so deeply that you refuse to entertain anything less than what you deserve. And that energy changes the game. Because when you raise your standard, you don't just filter out the wrong people, you make room for the right ones. The ones who see you, who hear you, who would never dream of disrespecting you because they know the value you bring. But that all starts with one decision. No more silence in the face of disrespect. Ever again. There will be people who try to twist your boundaries into arrogance. They'll say you're too proud, too sensitive, too much. But those words are distractions. You weren't born to live muted. You weren't born to make everyone comfortable at your expense. The real you, the bold you, the awake you knows deep down that love without respect is not love at all. That friendship without honor is not friendship. That leadership without dignity is not leadership. And the second you decide that you will never again accept less than respect, your whole world starts to shift. You attract different energy. You walk different. You speak different. You stop apologizing for taking up space. And you realize that silence was never protecting you. It was just prolonging the pain. So now you rise. You rise with a voice full of truth, with a spine made of courage and a soul that refuses to be dimmed. Disrespect may try to knock again, but this time it won't find the door. Because you've sealed it shut with your self-worth, and you finally remembered who you are. You ever been in a situation where someone tells you they love you, but every time they say it, it feels more like control than care? That's not love. That's manipulation wearing a pretty face. That's someone twisting your heartstrings like they're tuning an instrument for their performance. And it hurts because it doesn't show up as a slap. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It tiptoes into your life as attention, affection, even what feels like protection. And then suddenly it's power over your choices, your self-esteem, your ability to breathe without checking their mood first. Real love builds you. Real love frees you. But manipulation, it cages you while convincing you the cage is for your own good. That's the most dangerous part. They convince you that you need them to feel whole. And over time, you start believing that lie. You begin to measure your worth based on how well you can keep them happy, how little you can ask for, how much of yourself you can give up. But that's not love. That's theft. That's emotional robbery. And it's time to call it what it is. Because love doesn't leave you exhausted. Love doesn't make you question your sanity. That's manipulation, plain and clear. Sometimes it's in the way they guilt trip you for having boundaries. The moment you say, I need space, they look at you like you just shattered their world. They twist the story. Now you're the villain. You're cold. You don't care. You're abandoning them. And before you know it, you're apologizing for trying to protect your own peace. You start shrinking your needs to make room for their feelings. And that's how they do it. Little by little, they condition you to equate sacrifice with love. But love doesn't demand that you bleed for it. Love doesn't weaponize your empathy. See, manipulators know how to make their chaos look like passion. They know how to keep you in a constant state of emotional confusion, and they do it by playing both the storm and the shelter. One minute they're tearing you down, the next they're holding you saying, I'm only hard on you because I care. No, that's not caring. That's control wrapped in sentiment. That's someone rewriting your reality until you start second guessing your own instincts. Don't fall for that. Don't trade your clarity for closeness. If someone only gives you peace after they've caused a storm, that's not love. That's leverage. You ever notice how manipulators keep score, but in a way that always puts you in debt? They remember every mistake you made, every time you fell short, but conveniently forget the moments they broke you. You forgive them again and again because your heart is pure, but they keep tallying your flaws like receipts. And you stay thinking, maybe if I just try harder, love them better, they'll change. But manipulation doesn't respond to love, it feeds off it. The more you give, the more they take. And they twist your kindness into obligation. Now you're not loving freely, you're performing. Walking on eggshells, smiling through discomfort. You learn to hide your true feelings because you know the second you open your mouth, it'll be turned against you. That's emotional warfare. That's not what love feels like. Love doesn't put you in a mental maze. It doesn't make you prove yourself just to be treated with decency. And if someone needs to break you down to keep you close, that's not love. That's fear in disguise. That's someone who doesn't want a partner. They want possession. And you were not made to be owned. You were made to be honored. What's dangerous is how manipulation can feel so familiar that you start calling it normal. Maybe you grew up in a house where love came with strings. Maybe you learned early on that affection had to be earned. That approval was always just one mistake away from disappearing. And so when you meet someone who gives you a taste of affection and then yanks it away, it feels like home. But listen to me. Just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's right. Don't confuse trauma bonnets for love. Don't confuse intensity for intimacy. A manipulator will make the highs feel so high that you'll overlook the lows. They'll give you just enough hope to keep you hooked, and every time you try to leave, they'll love bomb you with apologies, promises, tears. But it's all part of the cycle. They don't want to lose you. They just want to keep you beneath them. And the hardest part is that they do it with words like baby, forever. You're everything. But love without respect is just a performance. And a performance without truth is a lie. You don't need someone who loves you sometimes. You need someone who's safe always. That's what real love feels like. Peace, not performance. Let's talk about how manipulators isolate you. Not always physically, but emotionally. They start by planting seeds of doubt. Your friends don't really get you. Your family's always in your business. Only I understand you. And at first it sounds romantic, like they're just deeply connected to you, but it's not about connection. It's about control. They want to be your whole world so they can shape it however they want. And the fewer outside voices you hear, the easier it is for theirs to become the loudest in your head. Soon, you're alone, confused, and questioning the very people who once grounded you. That's not love. That's strategy. Because the more isolated you are, the more dependent you become. And when they hurt you, there's no one around to remind you it's not okay. There's no mirror to reflect the truth. You just see their version. And over time, you lose sight of yourself. That's why you have to stay vigilant. Trust the people who want you to thrive everywhere, not just with them. If someone truly loves you, they won't cut your lifelines. They'll help you build more. They won't fear your independence. They'll celebrate it. Because love doesn't cage you. It liberates you. You know it's manipulation when your emotions are constantly being minimized. You express hurt and they say you're overreacting. You set a boundary and they say you're selfish. You try to explain your needs and somehow the conversation always flips to how you're the problem. That's not conflict resolution. That's gaslighting. That's someone conditioning you to question your emotions until you stop trusting yourself entirely. And once they've got you there, they can do anything. Because now you're walking around thinking you're broken. that you're lucky anyone puts up with you, that you're hard to love, but none of that is true. What's true is you were manipulated into believing that your emotional intelligence was a weakness, that your empathy made you a burden, and it's not, it's your gift. But manipulators prey on that gift because it's easier to control someone who feels deeply. That's why you have to hold tight to your truth. Don't let anyone tell you how to feel. Don't let anyone convince you that love should hurt more than it heals. You are not too much. You're just finally too awake to be controlled. The biggest lie manipulation tells you is that it's your fault. That if you were better, quieter, less emotional, more understanding, they wouldn't act this way. And so you begin to carry the blame for their behavior. You start adjusting your light to keep their darkness comfortable. But the truth is, they choose how they treat you. You are not responsible for their wounds. You are not responsible for their lack of growth. And no amount of shrinking yourself will ever turn manipulation into love. At some point, you have to realize that saving them is not your job, saving yourself is. And that takes courage. It takes standing in front of the mirror and saying, I deserve more than survival. Because that's what manipulation does. It keeps you in survival mode, always scanning for danger, always bracing for the next emotional shift. That's not living. That's enduring. And you were not born to endure love. You were born to experience it fully, freely, and fearlessly. So don't apologize for waking up. Don't apologize for choosing clarity over chaos. And don't apologize for walking away from anything that changed your soul and dares to call it affection. You know better now. And that knowing is your freedom. You ever had someone look you dead in the eye and tell you something didn't happen when you know it did? That moment where your gut screams truth, but their words punch holes in your memory? That's gaslighting. That's someone reaching into your mind and rearranging the furniture until you don't even recognize your own reality anymore. It starts small, a comment here, a denial there, a chuckle when you bring up something serious. You're too sensitive, they say. Don't be dramatic. And suddenly you start doubting yourself. You start thinking maybe you are too much. Maybe you did misremember. Maybe it is your fault. That's the trap. That's the poison. And it doesn't just mess with your head, it shakes your spirit. Because once someone gets you to question your reality, they can shape it however they want. They become the author of your experience. And you're stuck living in their story. But your truth is sacred. It's not up for debate. And no one has the right to rewrite your truth just to make themselves more comfortable. If they need to bend your reality to keep control, they were never trying to love you. They were trying to own you. Gaslighting is subtle warfare. It's not always loud. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Sometimes it looks like someone just asking questions. Sometimes it sounds like concern. Are you sure that's what happened? But it always carries the same message. You can't trust yourself. And that message seeps into every corner of your life. You start second guessing everything, your feelings, your memories, your decisions. You become scared of your own voice. That's when you start outsourcing your truth to someone else. And let me tell you, that's a dangerous place to be. Because when you give someone else the power to tell you what's real, you give them the power to control your whole life. And they will use it. They'll use it to keep you small, compliant, easy to manage, and all the while they'll wear the mask of innocence. They'll say, I'm just trying to help, but help doesn't silence you. Help doesn't erase you. Real love stands with your truth, even when it's messy. Real love says, I hear you, I believe you. Anything else is manipulation dressed up in concern. Don't fall for it. You deserve to live in a world where your truth is safe. One of the hardest parts of gaslighting is that it turns you into a stranger to yourself. You stop trusting your own eyes, your own heart, your own mind. You could be standing in a room full of broken pieces, holding the evidence in your hands, and they'll still look you in the face and say, it was never broken. And the more they repeat it, the more you start wondering if maybe you are the problem. That's how deep it goes. That's how this game is played. And the worst part, they do it in a way that makes you feel like you owe them an apology, like you're being unreasonable for reacting. That's psychological warfare. That's someone trying to take your voice and call it overreaction. But let me remind you, your feelings are not fiction. Your pain is not imaginary. What you saw, what you felt, what you experienced, it's valid. And if someone's constantly making you feel like you have to fight just to be believed, That's not love. That's power. That's ego. That's a person who cares more about looking right than being right. And no soul deserves to be silenced just to preserve someone else's comfort. Gaslighting will have you apologizing for things you never did, for emotions you didn't create, for pain you didn't start. It will have you walking on emotional glass barefoot, bleeding while trying to convince yourself it's normal. And that's how you know it's gone too far. When you begin to protect the person who's hurting you because they've convinced you that you're the unstable one, that you're the one who's always overreacting. You're lucky anyone's even dealing with you. Let me tell you right now, that's not love, that's psychological prison. And the scariest part is, people will gaslight you and still say they love you. They'll look you in the eyes and call you precious while tearing down your sanity behind your back. But love does not make you lose your voice. It doesn't erase your perspective. It doesn't mold your reality to make room for someone else's denial. Your truth is not negotiable. It is your anchor in the storm. And anyone trying to pull it from you is not trying to love you, they're trying to unmake you. And you've got to decide that your peace, your truth, yourself is worth more than their comfort. You don't need permission to own your story. You don't need validation from someone who constantly rewrites your emotions like they're editing a script. You were there, you lived it, you felt it, and you know when something doesn't feel right. That's not paranoia, that's your intuition. And gaslighters hate intuition because it's the one thing they can't fully control. That quiet voice inside you that says something's off. That voice is your defense system, and they'll do everything to shut it down. They'll tell you you're imagining things that you're too emotional, that no one else would put up with you. But that's projection. That's them unloading their dysfunction onto your spirit and hoping you'll carry it. Don't carry it. Let it fall. Because your truth doesn't need to be convenient for anyone else. It doesn't need to be polished or pretty or easy to hear. It just needs to be real. And the more you speak it, the more power you take back. The more you believe it, the more free you become. And freedom starts with one decision. I believe me. Not their version, not their spin, me. There's something deeply cruel about being hurt and then told the hurt didn't happen, that your tears were too much, that your reaction was the problem, not the cause. It's like being pushed underwater and then blamed for drowning. That's the emotional chokehold gaslighting puts you in. And it's especially brutal when it comes from someone you trusted, a friend, a partner, a parent. Someone who should have been your safe place, because when the person you turn to is the one making you doubt yourself, it shatters something inside. But here's what they can't destroy: your inner knowing. That small, quiet flame inside that remembers the truth, that remembers how it really felt. And I want you to hold on to that flame, because that's your power, that's your compass. It might flicker, it might feel weak, but it's real. And with every lie they try to bury you in, that flame still burns. You are not crazy. You are not difficult. You are not wrong for needing to be heard. What you are is awake. And being awake means you don't have to stay in the lie. You can walk out. You can rebuild. Because the truth will always find its voice again. You're allowed to take your story back. Every twisted memory, every moment you were made to feel small, unsure, unstable, you get to reclaim that, because gaslighting tries to erase you, but healing rewrites you in your own voice. And that voice, it's strong, it's clear, it's rooted in something deeper than fear. It's rooted in truth. And truth is not fragile. Truth does not break under pressure. Truth, and when you start speaking it out loud, unapologetically, you'll see the power return to your bones. You'll stop needing permission to feel. You'll stop explaining your pain to people committed to misunderstanding you. You'll start trusting yourself again. And that's how the cycle breaks. That's how you heal, not by waiting for an apology from someone who thrives on denial, but by looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I believe you. That is where freedom begins. That is where the lie ends. And that right there, that's where you rise. You ever been in a room full of people and still felt invisible? That kind of loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being overlooked, ignored, pushed to the side like you don't matter. That's what consistent neglect does to a person. It eats at you slowly, like a silent thief stealing your sense of worth, one forgotten moment at a time. They don't yell. They don't slam doors. They just never call. They never show up. They never ask how you are. And after a while, you start wondering if maybe you are too much. Maybe being seen, being heard, being chosen is just not in the cards for you. That's the dangerous lie neglect whispers in your ear. But I need you to hear me when I say this. You are not an afterthought. You are not someone to be put on a shelf and dusted off when it's convenient. You are not someone to be remembered only in silence or when it serves someone else. You deserve consistent presence, real attention, the kind that doesn't need a reminder, the kind that shows up because it wants to, not because it's obligated. You deserve to be someone's priority, not their backup plan. Neglect is not just about what they don't do, it's about what it teaches you to accept. When someone continuously fails to show up for you, you start shrinking. You stop expressing your needs. You begin to feel like needing anything at all is a burden. You water yourself down, hoping maybe then they'll notice. You become low mental. You stop asking. You stop expecting. You convince yourself that silence is better than disappointment. But deep down, that ache grows louder because your soul was never meant to survive on scraps. You weren't built to wait endlessly for love that barely shows up. And the truth is, when someone makes a habit out of neglecting you, they're showing you exactly where you stand in their life. Don't ignore that. Don't justify it, because consistent neglect doesn't just happen. It's a choice to disregard your humanity, a choice to ignore your value. And you don't have to stay there. You don't have to keep proving you're worthy of being seen. You already are. And if they can't see that, it's not your job to dim your light. It's their job to open their eyes. You know what hurts the most about neglect? It's not just the absence. It's the message underneath it. That you're not worth the effort. That your presence isn't missed. That your pain doesn't matter enough to be acknowledged. That kind of silence is loud, deafening even. It echoes in your chest and makes you question every part of yourself. Was I too much? Was I not enough? And that spiral, it's not your fault. It's what happens when someone you care about stops caring back, when they get used to your strength, your consistency, your loyalty. So much so, they think you'll always be there no matter how little they show up for you. But love is not a one-way street. And being strong doesn't mean accepting emotional starvation. You are not someone to be visited only in convenience. You are not a pit stop on someone's journey to somewhere better. You are a destination all on your own. And anyone who makes you feel like you're optional, like you're just nice to have around, but never necessary, they don't deserve the fullness of your love. Because love isn't a game of hide and seek. It's presence. It's consistency. And it's time you demanded that. When someone consistently neglects you, you start adapting to it like it's normal. You start celebrating breadcrumbs. A text back after days feels like a victory. A short conversation becomes a moment to cling to. And that's the saddest part. You begin to lower the bar so much that the bare minimum feels like affection. But deep down, you know that's not what love is supposed to feel like. Love doesn't keep you wondering. It doesn't make you guess. It doesn't go silent when you need it most. And yet so many of us stay. We hold on, hoping that one day they'll change, that one day they'll wake up and finally see us. But how many more days are you going to lose waiting on someone to decide you're worthy? How many more nights will you spend wrestling with your own worth just because someone else couldn't recognize it? Let me be clear. You are not too much. You are not hard to love. You are not a burden. And anyone who makes you feel like love is something you have to earn, beg for, or chase is not giving you love at all. They're giving you their convenience, and that's not enough. The weight of neglect is heavy because it doesn't always come from enemies. It comes from the people you never expected it from. Friends, family, lovers, the ones who promised they'd be there, the ones who looked you in the eyes and swore they cared. And when they stop showing up, when they go quiet, when they pull back without a word, it's like emotional whiplash. You start retracing every step, trying to find what you did wrong. But sometimes the problem isn't you. Sometimes it's their inability to love you the way you need to be loved. It's their unwillingness to rise to the level of your heart. And that hurts. It hurts to let go of someone you care about. But it hurts more to keep choosing someone who never chooses you. It hurts more to keep setting yourself on fire just to light up their world while they leave you in the dark. Your soul deserves better than that. Your love deserves to be met with the same intensity, the same consistency, the same depth. Stop trying to convince someone to show up. If they wanted to, they would. And if they don't, you owe it to yourself to stop waiting. There's a quiet strength in deciding that you will no longer be anyone's afterthought, that your worth isn't dependent on someone else's recognition, that your value doesn't shrink just because someone failed to see it. You don't need to chase affection. You don't need to beg for attention. You don't need to perform for love. Love doesn't need to be earned. It needs to be honored. And if someone can't do that, they don't get access to you. Not your time, not your energy, not your spirit. You've got too much life in you to spend it waiting on people who treat you like an option. You've got too much fire in your soul to keep dimming it for those who never even tried to match your light. And yes, walking away from neglect is hard. It feels like giving up, but you're not giving up. You're waking up. You're realizing that staying in spaces where you're consistently overlooked is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. And you're not here to abandon yourself, you're here to rise, to be seen, to be held the way you hold others, to finally feel what it's like to be loved in full, not in fractions. You were never meant to be someone's plan B. You were never meant to be kept on the sidelines waiting for a moment that may never come. You were born with value, with presence, with fire. And the right people will feel that, they'll move with that, they'll match that energy. Because when someone truly sees you, they don't just speak it, they show it. They make you feel it every single day. And that's what you deserve. Not just words, but action. Not just promises, but follow through. Not just love when it's easy, but love that shows up when it's hard. And the beautiful thing is, once you stop tolerating neglect, you make room for something deeper. Something real, something that doesn't flinch at your light, but stands in awe of it. And I want that for you. I want you to believe that your heart, your time, your presence is a gift that should be treated with care, not taken for granted. And the moment you stop settling, the moment you stop accepting less, that's when you start living the love you've always deserved. And that love, it starts with you, choosing you every time. No matter who forgets. You ever share your joy with someone and instead of lighting up with you, their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes? That subtle shift in energy, that quiet coldness dressed up as politeness, that's not your imagination. That's jealousy, pretending to be your friend. And it's one of the most heartbreaking things to feel, because when you care about someone, when you consider them family, you want them beside you when the light finally finds you. But not everyone in your circle is clapping for you. Some people only feel big when you feel small. Some people stay close not because they love you, but because they need to measure themselves against you. And when you start rising, they start shrinking. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your glow reminds them of what they haven't become yet. That's not friendship. That's competition hiding behind small talk. That's sabotage hidden inside half-hearted praise. And the pain comes from not just their reaction, but the realization that you've been rooting for someone who's secretly been hoping you'd stay behind. You need to know, real friends don't get quiet when you win. Real ones don't flinch when you shine. They rise with you. Every time. Jealousy in friendship doesn't always come out loud. It doesn't always slap you in the face. Sometimes it whispers. It shows up in those backhanded compliments, those subtle jabs, those jokes that sting just a little too much. It shows up when they dismiss your dreams or act unimpressed by your growth. You tell them about your new opportunity and they switch the topic. You hit a milestone and they go radio silent. And at first you make excuses. You think maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe it's you. But over time, the pattern becomes too loud to ignore. Because the truth is, someone who loves you, someone who really loves you, will never be threatened by your glow. They won't compete with you. They'll cheer for you like it's their own victory. They won't get quiet when the spotlight's on you. They'll help hold the light steady. So if you're constantly shrinking yourself to protect someone's ego, if you're dimming your joy so they feel more comfortable, you're not in a friendship. You're in a silent war where only one person gets to rise. And that ain't love. That's fear. That's insecurity. That's someone who doesn't know how to clap unless the applause is for them. The hardest part is When jealousy hides behind history, you look at them and remember all the laughs, the deep talks, the late nights where you thought you'd found your ride or die. But time reveals what intention hides. Because real friendship isn't just about where you've been, it's about how they handle who you're becoming. And sometimes the ones who were closest to you when you were struggling don't know how to handle you when you're succeeding. They were comfortable when you were unsure, when you were questioning yourself, when you needed them more than you needed your own voice. But when you started standing taller, when you began walking in purpose, suddenly their jokes got sharper, their support got lighter, their presence got weaker. And you start wondering, was it ever real? Or were they just comfortable with a version of you that didn't make them question their own reflection? And the answer hurts. Because losing a friend that you love like family isn't easy. But keeping someone close who secretly resents your joy, that's poison. That's a slow drain on your spirit. And you deserve friendships that feed your soul, not ones that feast on your doubt. You ever felt guilty for your own success? Not because you did anything wrong, but because someone in your circle made you feel like your growth was betrayal. That kind of emotional manipulation is deep. They won't say it outright, no, they'll wrap it in silence, in distance, in passive-aggressive comments like, must be nice, or some of us still have real problems. And without even realizing it, you start shrinking your wins. You downplay your progress. You hide your good news just to keep the peace. But let me tell you something, real love doesn't ask you to hide your joy. Real friendship doesn't make you feel like your blessings are burdens. If someone can't celebrate you without comparing themselves, that's their battle, not yours. Don't carry their insecurity on your back like it's your responsibility to make them feel okay about your elevation. It's not your job to play small so they feel big. It's not your job to delude your dreams so their ego stays intact. You were built to rise. And anyone who tries to anchor you in guilt for growing doesn't deserve a seat at your table, especially when you've worked so hard to build it. People who are secretly jealous will often disguise their envy as concern. They'll say, I'm just looking out for you, or don't let it go to your head. But listen closely. It's not advice, it's a subtle attempt to keep you grounded in their limitations. They'll plant seeds of doubt in your garden and call it wisdom. They'll question your choices, your readiness, your worth, not because they know better, but because they can't stand to see you rise past the version of you they could control. And that's dangerous. Because when jealousy wears the mask of love, it's easy to trust the wrong voice. It's easy to start believing that maybe they're right. Maybe you are moving too fast. Maybe you do need to slow down. But you don't. You need to move at the pace of your purpose, not at the comfort level of someone else's insecurity. Real friends speak life. Real friends pour courage into your fear. They don't just warn you about the storm, they hand you an umbrella and walk through the rain with you. So be careful who you let shape your self-belief. Not every voice deserves to be loud in your life. One of the biggest betrayals is not someone walking away, it's someone staying close just to keep you in check. Just to monitor your growth, just to stay near enough to feel superior, but not close enough to truly support you. And that kind of fake friendship is draining. It's confusing. Because they're still showing up. They're still calling. But every interaction leaves you a little emptier, a little more unsure. And that's the trick of jealousy. It doesn't always want you to fall. It just wants to make sure you don't fly too far. It wants to keep you tethered, manageable, within reach. Because as long as you stay small, they never have to question their own stagnation. But the moment you step out in confidence, the moment you start doing what they never dared to, your existence becomes a threat. And that's not your fault. That's not your burden to carry. Your only job is to keep growing, to keep glowing, to keep becoming everything you were meant to be, even if it means leaving behind the ones who never really had the capacity to love you in your full form. Some people only love the version of you that needed them. But the real ones, they love every version, even the one that outgrows them. You need people in your life who clap when you win. Loudly, unapologetically, people who don't get quiet when the spotlight finds you, people who don't flinch when you're favored, people who aren't secretly tallying your success as a mark against their own. Real friends don't compete, they complement. They don't compare, they contribute. They don't resent your blessings, they remind you how hard you worked for them. And if you don't have that yet, keep your circle small until you do. Don't let the fear of being alone trap you in friendships that slowly suffocate your light. You're not here to babysit egos. You're not here to lower your volume for someone else's comfort. You were meant to shine, to inspire, to stretch. And anyone who truly loves you will love watching you expand. So let the jealous ones fall away. Let the fake ones fade out. Let the masked envy reveal itself. Because once it does, you'll make room for the kind of love that celebrates you without hesitation. You don't need half loves. You don't need quiet resentment. You need people who lift you up without limits. That's not too much to ask. That's the standard. And you deserve every bit of it. Being kind should never mean being stepped on. It should never mean being taken for granted, overlooked, or used up like you're some endless well of patience and forgiveness. But too often the world mistakes kindness for weakness. People see your soft heart and think you won't notice when they cross the line. They assume that because you're generous, you'll keep giving even when it's hurting you. They think because you choose peace, you won't stand up for yourself. But hear me, your kindness is not a flaw. It's not some weakness to be exploited. It's a strength, a rare and beautiful strength in a world that's forgotten how to care deeply, love loudly, and forgive freely. But even the strongest people break when they're constantly being taken advantage of. And the truth is, you can be good and still set boundaries. You can have a heart of gold and still say enough. Because being kind doesn't mean being available for disrespect. It doesn't mean being everyone's emotional dumping ground. It doesn't mean you owe anyone access to your spirit just because you're willing to give. Your kindness is a gift, not a guarantee. And it's time you start protecting it like the treasure it is. It's heartbreaking when people only come around when they need something. When they drain your energy, your time, your spirit, then disappear the moment you say no. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's convenience. And when your kindness gets reduced to a service, when your compassion is treated like currency for other people's comfort, it leaves you empty. Because you're not a machine. You're not some endless supply of healing for people who never ask how you're doing. And the people who abuse your kindness, they're usually the ones who know exactly how good your heart is. That's why they push. That's why they guilt trip you. That's why they keep coming back, not because they value you, but because they value what you give them. And the painful part is you keep hoping that if you give more, they'll finally see your worth, but they won't. Not until you stop making yourself so easily available to people who would never do the same for you. Kindness doesn't mean sacrificing your well-being. It doesn't mean proving your worth by being endlessly forgiving. It means knowing your value and choosing to give, not out of guilt, but out of love, on your terms. Sometimes the most painful lesson in life is realizing that not everyone has the same heart as you. You love deeply, you show up, you remember the little things, you listen when no one else does. And in return, some people only remember you when it's convenient. They use your shoulder when they need to cry, but they're nowhere to be found when you're the one breaking. And it messes with your head because you start thinking maybe you're the problem. Maybe you care too much. Maybe you're too sensitive, but no, you're not too anything. You're exactly who you need to be. The problem isn't your kindness. The problem is people who never learned how to honor kindness. People who see it as an opening, a weakness, a soft spot to press on until you fold. But let me tell you, there's nothing soft about what it takes to keep loving in a world like this. It takes courage to care, to show up, to keep your heart open after it's been bruised. But don't let your love be a leash. Don't let your generosity chain you to people who only remember your number when they're desperate. You're more than their emergency contact. There comes a point when you have to stop proving your love to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. You give and they ask why you didn't give more. You help and they question your motives. You stay and they act like you're just doing what you're supposed to. That kind of treatment chips away at your soul. It makes you second guess your instincts, makes you feel guilty for wanting space, makes you feel selfish for finally saying no. But no is not selfish. No is sacred. No is survival. And the truth is, the more you let people walk over you in the name of being good, the harder it becomes to recognize your own worth. You start measuring your value by how much pain you can absorb for others. But love shouldn't hurt like that. Compassion shouldn't cost you your peace. If someone only values you for what you do for them, then they don't value you. They value the benefit, and when you pull that benefit back, their true colors show. You deserve to be loved, not leveraged. Appreciated, not accessed. Your kindness is not a discount. Stop letting people pay less than you're worth. You don't owe your peace to people who only come around to disturb it. And you don't owe loyalty to people who see your kindness as a free pass to unload their toxicity. Too often we confuse kindness with tolerance. We think being a good person means letting people walk all over us, means never pushing back, never raising our voice, never cutting people off. But you can be kind and still walk away. You can be kind and still protect your energy. You can be kind and still say, I won't let you treat me like this anymore. That's not rude. That's not harsh. That's self-respect. And if someone can't handle your boundaries, they were never really respecting your kindness to begin with. They were using it. They were feeding off it. They were counting on you not speaking up. But guess what? You get to change the rules. You get to say, this is where it ends. Your heart is a powerful thing, but it's not a doormat. Stop letting people wipe their mess on your spirit just because you care. You can be both compassionate and clear, loving and firm, gentle and unshakable. That's real strength. It's wild how people will call you cold the moment you stop letting them drain you. The moment you create distance, the moment you start saying no, they act like you changed. But you didn't change. You just stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even give you a bandage. You finally realize that being kind doesn't mean being available to be hurt. You don't have to destroy yourself to prove your love. You don't have to burn out just to light someone else's path. That's not love. That's self-neglect. And the truth is, some people only stick around as long as you're easy to use. The moment you need them to show up for you, silence. The moment you need boundaries, resistance. But don't let that shake you. Don't let their reaction make you question your heart. You were never wrong for loving hard. You were never wrong for giving. But now it's time to give to yourself, to love yourself with the same intensity you poured into everyone else. The people who truly care won't flinch when you finally put yourself first. They'll applaud it because real ones want to see you whole, not hollowed out by everyone else's needs. There's a quiet power in reclaiming your kindness, in standing up and saying, I will not be used anymore. You still love, you still care, but you no longer offer it to those who see your heart as a transaction. You no longer sacrifice your joy for people who wouldn't lift a finger for yours. That's not bitterness, that's wisdom. That's growth. Because there's nothing noble about being worn down by everyone else's weight while pretending you're okay. You get tired, you get drained, and you deserve rest. You deserve relationships that pour back into you. You deserve to be seen as more than what you give. You are not just a helper, not just a listener, not just a giver. You are a whole person with needs, with dreams, with a spirit that deserves to be nurtured, not just needed. So protect your kindness like it's gold, because it is. Give it to those who cherish it. Share it with those who match it. And walk away from anyone who treats it like a given. Because you're not here to be used. You're here to be loved. Fully, deeply, and without condition. If you've ever felt like your kindness has been mistaken for weakness, like your loyalty has been stretched to the breaking point, or like your love has been taken for granted, this moment is for you. Let everything we've talked about settle deep in your soul, because it's not just words. It's a wake-up call. You are not here to be used, ignored, manipulated, or broken down by people who only take, who twist your truth, who call it love when it's control, who smile with jealousy hidden behind their eyes, or who treat your heart like a convenience store they visit when they're empty. You are here for more. You are here to walk with your head high and your boundaries firm, to speak your truth and not apologize for it, to love without losing yourself, to help without being handled, to care without carrying the entire weight of people who refuse to carry themselves. You deserve a life where your kindness is returned, your truth is respected, your love is reciprocated, and your value is recognized without you having to scream for it. The chains of manipulation, gaslighting, neglect, jealousy, and abuse, they don't belong on you. They're not your burden to bear. You didn't come into this world to spend your days explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You came here to stand tall, to love deeply but wisely, to give where you are honored, not used. And if that means walking away, then walk tall. If that means starting over, then start strong. Because the moment you stop tolerating what's unacceptable is the moment your true life begins. The life where your peace isn't a reward someone gives you, it's a right you protect. The life where your kindness isn't drained, it's where your light isn't dimmed, it's celebrated. So go forward with a fierce kind of love for yourself. Let the people who truly see you rise up to meet you. Let the ones who are only there to use you fall away. You don't need a crowd, you need truth. You need realness. You need love that doesn't come with chains. Protect your heart.